Hi, my name is Rose Reevely. I'm a Vedic astrologer, and I'm here today talking about the month of June and the lunar and solar eclipse that are coming ahead. And this is going to be an extraordinary month full of so many events. So let's take a moment and look at everything that's going on. One of the things that I really noticed when I started looking at all of the alignments is that Mercury's retrograde a few days, it stations, and then a few days before the solar eclipse, it turns retrograde. And this is really tying Mercury in with the eclipses, and the solar eclipse takes place in the sign of Gemini. Now, we are looking back because we have so many planets that are retrograde right now, but we're actually moving forward at a warp speed. And I know that many of you feel this because it is an interesting kind of energy. Now, Gemini is the constellation where the solar eclipse takes place. As I said, this is a sign of duality. And duality is the matter of opposites, okay? So love and hate, peace and war, light and dark. So I want you to kind of hold that in the back of your mind as we look at all that is going to be taking place. Now in this video, I'm going to be relating to light and dark, okay? So please don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And here we go. All eclipses are harbingers for change. What they do is they sweep in change to our lives. Now, a lot of astrologers will say that eclipses only have a lasting effect of 4 to 6 months. But in my experience, eclipses can bring in life-altering changes, meaning, it changes your life forever. And so when these planets conjunct your natal, when the eclipses conjunct a natal planet in your chart, this could be likely what is happening for you. Okay. Eclipses involve the sun and the moon and Ketu and Rahu, also called Rahu the north node, Ketu the south node. These are the luminaries. These deal with our consciousness, okay? So where the nodes are in your chart is really where you have the biggest challenges for your life in this life, but it's also where you have the biggest opportunity to make changes, to make positive changes. The eclipses involving the moon always bring in really erratic and volatile weather. One of the things that I notice is whenever the moon travels through Cancer, which it did just the other day, or towards the end of last week, where I live, we had a lot of rain, like a massive amount of rain, right? Almost to the point of some areas kind of flooding. And so when the moon travels through a water sign, that's often what happens. So expect more heavy rains and more flooding, maybe tornadoes, earthquakes during the lunar eclipse time. That's what eclipses do. They do bring in erratic weather. The solar eclipse takes place in Gemini. The lunar in Scorpio, a water sign. This means this eclipse, all eclipses really, they bring an opportunity, although it usually involves something that we didn't know, right? In other words, something is being swept out from under the rug, something that has been hidden. It may have been there all along, and in fact, it has probably been there all along. It's just that we didn't see it, right? It was in the dark, light and dark, okay? If you have planets near these degree points that I'll be talking about, then these eclipses will most definitely have an impact on your life. On June 5th, we have the lunar eclipse at 20 degrees in the sign of Scorpio. This is a very deep and insightful moon. The moon and the sun will be opposite each other. The moon is your intuition. And it will be heightened during this time. You will have you'll have the ability to really be in touch with your feelings. The moon deals with your subconscious mind, what is below the surface. Remember, Scorpio is a sign of transformation. And so our feelings and emotions are undergoing a sort of transformation during this time. And I'll talk a little more about that in just a moment. In the middle, I'm going to highlight these events and then dig in a little deeper to them. In the middle of the lunar and solar eclipse, Mercury turns retrograde on June 18th at 20 degrees of Gemini. This is a very important degree point. I'll elaborate. This is really important because it ties Mercury in with, Mercury is the communicating planet, remember? It ties it in with the solar eclipse. On June 21st, we have the solar eclipse at 5 degrees of Gemini. Now, the solar eclipse really impacts us more outwardly. The lunar is our feelings and our emotions, right? But the solar eclipse is an outward effect. So we can see it more, whereas the lunar eclipse, we feel it more. On June 23rd, Neptune turns retrograde. And Neptune is also referred to as the Great Dissolver. So Neptune being discovered when the film industry was first coming into being, I think in the 1850s is about that time. Remember, we watched movies and films to escape, right? To get away from whatever it is, our daily lives or whatever our concerns are. We watch the movies to kind of, to get away from our, whatever is concerning us or whatever is maybe sometimes on our mind. So Neptune deals with illusion and delusion, light and dark, right? The opposites. So Neptune right now is in the 3rd house of the USA's chart, and it deals with the disinformation of information. Remember, it's called the Great Dissolver. And so it dissolves some things that may be important in terms of what we know, what we learn, what comes to the surface. And so that is what has been happening up to now. On June 25th, Venus, planet of love that deals with all of our relationships, comfort, it's going to be going direct. And so Venus rules over all the arts and fine dining out, enjoying. Remember, Venus is also about happiness and comfort. And I don't know about you, but if I'm dining out, I'm a happy person, and it feels very comfortable to dine out. So Venus also deals with extreme amounts of wealth. And Venus in the sign of Taurus is in its home sign, so it loves being here, right? It's comfortable here. Remember, Taurus is an earth sign. I talked about Venus retrograde in my May video. By the end of June, you will have completed the review process with your relationships, in terms of your relationships. Now, this Venus retrograde has also been about what you value, right? And in a poll that was recently taken, it showed that what people were missing now was being with their friends and families. And guess what? Dining out, eating out, being out, socializing with people they love, friends and family. So we're missing gathering, right? Socializing. And so that is really a freedom that we have to gather. And so we are reviewing what our resources, Taurus is a sign that deals with our resources. And we're reviewing what we value. And so these freedoms that we've taken for granted, we're really looking at that again, right? And we see the value of that freedom, of the value to gather, to be with the ones that we love. Okay, the end of June, Pluto and Jupiter will retrograde back into the sign of Sagittarius. Now, I'm not going to talk about it in this video. I will in the July video because it happens at the very end of June. June 28th, Pluto retrogrades to Sagittarius. A day later, Jupiter follows Pluto into Sagittarius. This will make another big shift, okay? But for now, let's look at all the cosmic activity that is taking place in the same month. June is a pivotal month for this year, for 2020. Okay, June 5th, again, the lunar full moon eclipse takes place in the sign of Scorpio. In the sign of Scorpio, this is at 20 degrees of Scorpio. So this is a fiery moon because Scorpio is ruled by Mars. So remember, the moon represents the masses and how we're feeling, and it represents our emotions and our emotional state of mind. The moon in the sign of Scorpio, sorry, it keeps jumping back here, can really go to the depths of our feelings, in terms of our feelings and emotions. And it's really up for making revolutionary, look at the word, R-E, revolutionary changes. So we're seeing this now, right? Many people are angry. We're seeing protests all over the U.S. And it's reminding me of the 60s when I was a child. I was very well aware of there being protests. I really didn't understand all that was behind, all that was going on, but I knew that that was happening. And so we're seeing many people breaking out with violence, and we're seeing businesses being vandalized. We're seeing people being harmed from this. Now, let me just say from this, the moon in Scorpio is good for reforming, for reformation, and it's also good for guiding others. So here in Scorpio, emotionally, it has the ability to take what's called quick action. The star is Jaiesta, which is ruled by Mercury. And both the moon and Mercury signify the mind, but in different ways. So the moon signifies our feeling, what we feel. Notice when I say feeling, I kind of point to my chest or my heart, because our emotions are really our feeling mind. And so this also deals with the subconscious mind, what is running below the surface, right? And this is really the part of all of us that calls the shots, the subconscious mind. Most people think it's the conscious mind, the thinking mind, but it's really not. Mercury, the planet Mercury, where Mercury's going retrograde, it's tied in with the eclipses, the thinking and critical and judging mind of us. I like to say Mercury is the part of you that takes care of your bank account, that does your banking, that makes your grocery list. This is the thinking mind. Remember, the moon is how you feel. So Mercury also judges and analyzes. It deals with critical thinking. And so you see, the moon here really gets what I call a depth charge, because it's like a submarine here. And I want to point out that this nakshatra, the star, Jaiesta, is a brilliant star. And both Einstein and Mozart had their natal moons in this star of Jaiesta. And what they contributed to our world, we still have in our world today. So this is really an important place, an important star that the moon is going through for this lunar eclipse. And that is why I wanted to speak about it. Again, we're experiencing the lunar eclipse June 5th inwardly. So it's all about our feelings. And here's another thing. Every 2.5 days, every 2.5 days, we feel differently because the moon transits through different constellations of the zodiac. And so this is a reason why one day you may feel really up and positive, and the next day you might feel a little bit not so positive, or maybe you might feel melancholy, okay? Or maybe you just don't feel happy or sad. You kind of are just in between. This is the moon's transit through the different constellations in the zodiac. So that's why the lunar influence is emotional, right? And it changes. It's changeable. The moon is changeable. But here's the thing. The moon is not conjunct. and it's not traveling with any other planets during this time. So you may feel melancholy or just kind of alone because the moon likes company. The moon loves companionship, right? And so it gives you the ability to have a deep understanding and to do deep inner work. So this is going to be a really good time for self-inquiry, for hypnosis. And just to remind you, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, right? And so this will be a very good time to do any kind of deep inner work that you want to do, because whatever you're feeling is being brought to the surface to be healed. Now, what is interesting is that Mercury and the moon break the Kala-Sarpa Yoga that we've been having since, I believe the Kala-Sarpa Yoga started around the end of February, maybe the beginning of March. And I've talked about this in almost all of my last videos because it's been in effect. And so Kala-Sarpa Yoga kind of gives us the feeling that we don't really have our own, we have no power over our own destiny, in a sense. It makes you feel destined for a certain thing, whether that in your mind is positive or not. That's what Kala-Sarpa Yoga does for people who have that in their natal chart. And so many people have been feeling, they might feel disempowered by this, like even, like I don't know what to do with this, right? I don't know how to go forward with this. And so what is good here is that Mercury and the moon will break the Kala-Sarpa Yoga that we've been having since this time, the end of February, the beginning of March. And so Scorpio is a really independent sign. It doesn't really like to take direction from anyone or have anybody interfere with its independence. So to sum it up, this lunar eclipse and how to navigate it. The moon is the feeling, the emotional mind. Mercury's the thinking mind. Get ready for there to be revelations of sorts. Your intuition will be operating at a high level. And so you want to pay close attention to all your feelings. You want to, they're going to give you a lot of information. And so it's not a good time to make final decisions, but it is a good time to reflect and to observe. And you may receive downloads. You may have dreams. In fact, I've been having people tell me they're having this already. So remember this, that we are within the time, and eclipses can start to affect you weeks before the eclipse, okay? So you may already be experiencing this. You receive downloads, you dream dreams, you have visions, you may have visions. And all of this is meant to guide you. All of this is meant to guide you. Remember, the moon and your emotions, your feelings are like your GPS, okay? It's your GPS. And I feel like that is our own internal guidance system, our own GPS system. Now on the 12th, Mercury, the communicator planet, stations at 12 degrees of Gemini. Again, it's in its own sign. It's stationing and retrograding in the 7th house of the USA's chart. In the 7th house of the USA's chart. And so this is a house of partnerships that we have with other countries, okay? When a planet stations, it's stopping. It's kind of like, I think of it as putting its hand up and saying, stop, wait a minute. I have something really important to tell you. So this is Mercury, the communicator planet, saying, hold up, guys. I've got something really important to say. It stations exactly on Venus at 12 degrees of Gemini. It stations exactly on Venus in the 7th house of the USA's chart. And so we talked about Venus and how it represents relationships. Again, the 7th house for the USA is relationships that we have with all these other countries. And Venus also represents what? Relationships, right? And values and freedoms. We just spoke about that. And so look for what will be revealed with other countries. Remember, Mercury is retrograde here, okay? It's stationing here. And so we're going to start to find out a lot about what? About contracts, agreements, and things with other countries. This gets deeper as we get into the solar eclipse. So look what will be revealed with other countries, how contracts, remember, Mercury is stationing. It's Mercury, the planet. So it rules over all commerce and business and trade, all of this that we do. And it is the communicator. So it deals with what? Technology, information technology. And so we're going to see how all these agreements and contracts from the past come under scrutiny. They're going to come under the light. They're going to come out from under the rug into the light, right? Light, darkness. On June 18th, Mercury retrogrades at 20 degrees, okay? Now remember, I just said it's stationed, but then stationing is like stopping to say, hey, wait a second, I want to tell you something. On June 18th, it retrogrades at 20 degrees, starting the review process. The degree point is so very significant because it activates Sirius, which is a fixed star. Sirius, the radio. We have so many things in our world that really take their terminology and their words and their meanings from astrology, right? So Sirius is a fixed star, and this star has many, many meanings, but one of them is that it deals with violence but gives honor, okay? Now, again, light and dark, Gemini, a sign of duality. So this stands out for me, but one of the things that really, really stands out for me is that this star deals with the evolution of the soul. Isn't that amazing? That's why I was saying this 20 degrees is so important. So what information comes out of this is part of our whole planet's evolution. We are evolving. Our souls are evolving. Mercury will conjunct Jupiter in the USA's ruling. Mercury conjuncts Jupiter. Jupiter is the ruling planet for the USA's chart. So expect expanding and explosive information. We are in for massive changes around energy, all energy, how it's used. Everyone now's heard of 5G, but this is something, expect I mentioned warp speed earlier, speed ahead at incredible ways. Expect changes around solar power and how it's used. Electricity in our homes, how we're going to be receiving it, how it's going to change. Now, this is not going to happen, I don't think, overnight, but it could, right? Because this is information that is moving very fast. It will be the way that we get this energy, these energy sources. It will be cleaner, and it will be less costly, and it will be delivered faster. Now, we may begin to find out more details here about the virus and the origins of COVID-19. Mercury does rule the 7th house of the USA's chart, as I said, and it represents other countries and agreements and information that comes through and by them. Again, ruling all trade, commerce. So as it retrogrades on the 18th, it's going to have us looking at everything that has to do. Now, I want you to remember something. This has to do with other countries. This has to do with our country's resources and what has been gifted, given, exchanged, sold. I mean, this is all contractual, right? Agreements and contracts. And we're going to learn how much interest other countries have within our country. We're going to learn who's profited from these agreements. So much has been hidden away from us as citizens because natally, Mercury is retrograde natally in the USA's chart, and it's retrograde in the 8th house. And it's retrograde in the 8th house, and that 8th house is Cancer. And Cancer deals with home and what is the values and resources around the home. And so as it's retrograde in the 8th house of the USA's natal chart, the 8th house represents secrets, Much has been kept secret from us about these agreements and these alliances with other countries. Now, I want to mention too that Pluto opposes, and we're talking about the natal chart now. Pluto, but all of this gets activated with the eclipse. Pluto is in the natal chart, USA's chart of the second house. It's also retrograde. And so natally, Pluto in the second house represents what? The resources of our homeland and the money, financial industry, the finances of our country. And so Pluto deals with a hidden agenda. Pluto deals with people who manipulate through covert matters. They're very powerful. They're extremely powerful. But we don't know who they are. We don't know the name of these people, but they operate in the dark, behind the scenes, covertly. So this deals with this is really explosive type energy, and so there's going to be an unraveling. Remember, this is retrograde. Mercury is retrograde in its own sign. And it's going to be an unraveling of information of the past that comes out. Now, I want you to understand something too. Remember when I say the natal chart of the USA, this is when America, the United States of America, was formed, July 4th, 1776. So what we may find out might not just be in the past, but it could go back to the founding fathers, right? I mean, a lot of this is not just something that's happened in the last few years. It's something that has a line attached to it, right? A line attached to it. That's the best thing I can think of now. And so this information is about our distant past. I'm talking about our ancestors, our heritage. And this is something important. What is inside the earth? What is inside our planet Earth? I feel strongly that something will be revealed about what is going on inside the planet. And it deals with pathways, roads, and tunnels, things that come and go, that have been created, maybe some by man, maybe different, okay? With Mercury's retrograde and the solar eclipse taking place within a few days of each other, all of this has to do, not all of it, but a large amount of it will have to do with manufacturing, resources, supply chains, how they've been disrupted. Much of our intellectual property of our country has been stolen for over decades now. It's been an ongoing thing, and this has to do with our own national security. This really affects the national security. You see how everything really is related. So it has to do with how we protect our country. So we're going back and retrieving this information from the past, and we're understanding the weak links, and we're even going to see who was involved. And the planet Mercury retrogrades in the star called Punavarsu. This is a beautiful nakshatra. The first part, Puna, means repeat, repetition, to do over, to do again. And Vasu, or Varsu, means a ray of light, a gem. And so it also means a jewel. And so this is the star of renewal. The star of renewal. This is for all of us. We are in a place of renewal. Even though you may be seeing a lot of darkness through this, we have the opportunity. The light will be shown. Okay? And so the star is ruled by Jupiter. And this is the planet's ruling. This is the USA's ruling planet. And it's friends with Mercury. What this does is this gives an ability to discern. This gives wisdom. And this is for all of us, okay? This is for all of us. It gives great skill in communicating. And so we're going to see beneficial results come out of this. Now, I don't want to leave out that this is going to be chaos, okay? There will be chaos. There is a disturbing part of this that we are going to see, you know, things that we don't want to see. We out of the chaos in, I'm trying to think of the yogi. Not sure if it was Vishwamitra. I'm not sure. I'm not even saying his name right. But he used to say that even in chaos, there is order. He would say there is order in the disorder. So we are going to have a lot of information that comes our way. So, but we have the opportunity to bring light to this. So what Punavarsu is good for, this particular star nakshatra, it's good for making life changes. So I believe we can learn something about the origins of our planet, even about our ancestral lineage. There's so much scientifically with archaeologists that don't match up. I think this is a time when science, okay, and spirituality begin to come together. There was a time when they were. And now I think we're going to come back to that, and we're going to see the meeting of that again. And that we're going to have secrets revealed to us. We're going to start to see the truth, right? We're going to start to see the light. So we will be reclaiming, rebuilding. We're in a place to regenerate. It is time for revisioning. So we're moving in all these different directions, and it might not be something that you had planned for your life, right? As the Kala Sarpa Yoga. It might not be what you would have planned, but it could turn out to be the best thing you ever planned, right? So thinking in the positive, the star of renewal, and that we are here to bring the light. So on June 21st, we have the actual solar eclipse, okay? And this is the outward effect, again, taking place at 5 degrees of Gemini. And remember what I said about duality, and this is the thing I wanted to actually impress upon you, and that is 5 degrees is where the solar eclipse takes place. 5 degrees of Gemini. Remember what I said about duality and light and dark. 5 degrees is the fixed star of Betelgeuse. And this star has so many meanings. It relates to martial honor, wealth, and power. But the meaning that I want to emphasize today is that Betelgeuse is one of the most important stargates. I'm going to repeat that. It is one of the most important stargates, and it has a magnetic field. And what it does is it stimulates the heart chakra. Okay, it stimulates the heart chakra for those who are spiritually attuned. Okay, and that would be you. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be watching this video, right? And so this is really a big deal. And that is why I am focusing and wanted to focus on the duality of the sign of Gemini. First of all, it's a duality, a sign of duality. And this is where the solar eclipse is taking place. So we're kind of recapping with Mercury being retrograde. I've already talked about. And so we're going to receive loads of information, right? And Mars, this does give us the ability to think fast, to process quickly, right? And the planet Mars is going to be sending its energy into Gemini, where the eclipse is. Now, Mars and Mercury Gemini's ruler, are not friends. In fact, they are mortal enemies. They do not like each other. Their energies are very, very different. And so Mars is known as the god of war. And when we look around, we see all the protests and the violence. We see Mars energy, right? But I want to say to you, and this is important, that Mars also has a spiritual energy, that Mars vibration operating on a higher level, vibrating higher, vibrating in the light, is one that is the spiritual warrior. Vibrating lower and in the dark, Mars is the energy that operates from anger, from violence, from bringing harm and destruction to personal property, to people. And so Mars, we can see now, is operating at a low level, right? A low energetic level, and not in awareness. But Mars operating as a spiritual warrior. So let me just say, who did that in the past? Martin Luther King was, he lived his life with this thought process of peaceful protest, that nothing good came, no progress came from violent protest. So that's who I think of when I think of a spiritual warrior for change. Again, we see duality here. We see the light, we see the dark. So the information that comes from the eclipse is going to be upsetting. It's going to be disturbing. And it's not going to be, some of it, a lot of it will not be what we want to see, okay? But please understand this, that as the light and the light bringers, we must be willing to look at the dark, right? Otherwise, how can we bring light to something that we refuse to see, that we look a different way? We don't want to see that, right? And we may not, and we won't, right? But in order for us to heal it, it has to be revealed, right? And it's being revealed through the eclipses. It's like us, our natures. We have light and dark within us. We have duality within us. This is what we're being shown, all of this. So individually, and in working with people in terms of healing, we cannot heal something we refuse to see. We can't, because we're refusing to acknowledge it. Illusion, delusion, that's Neptune. We cannot deceive ourselves and be healed, right? We cannot deceive ourselves and bring the light. So I believe this is an incredible time to be on this planet. And I do believe that we are here now to heal the planet, to lift the planet out of darkness. But we have to be willing to see the things that we don't like in order to be the light bringer, in order to shed the light on it, right? We won't fail. The light never fails. I want you to know that. The light never fails. So it'll be a time to rebuild, to reestablish, to restore, to reimagine our lives, our families, our planet. Yes, there are going to be disturbing events. Yes, it's going to be a pivotal month. It's going to be a clashing. There will be this violence and destruction, but we have the power to hold the light in our consciousness and to bring light on it with our thoughts, because our thoughts are vibrating. The whole planet is vibrating. We can lift the planet up simply by having positive thoughts. Yes, can we see it and it bothers us? Yes. Yes. What humanity has done, is doing to humanity, is disturbing. How we go about changing it, reforming it, repairing it. You can send the light. All of us are involved in this. No one's left out, right? You can send the light from wherever you are. You can send loving thoughts to your family, to your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your children. You can send loving thoughts to the protesters. It does have an impact because you're bringing light. You're pouring light into the darkness. I encourage you to be a ripple in the pond. Be the light bringer. Thanks for watching today. Namaste.